and welcome to Sunshine for Your Life. A few years ago, I was woken up in the middle of the night by a terrible thunderstorm. I heard a very, very loud cracking sound, and then all the lights went out. It was complete blackness, total darkness, and I thought we had been hit by lightning, and I really think we had been hit by lightning. The sound of that crack, of that thunder crack, I only heard anything like that once before, when our house and where I was living had been hit by lightning. Nonetheless, it was completely dark, and I wondered if we had a fire and the electricity was out, would the fire alarms go off? And then I wondered, is anybody stuck in the elevator? So eventually a generator came on, and so there was light in the parking lot. My apartment faced the parking lot. There was some light in the parking lot, and so I pulled open the curtains to get a little light. Then I got dressed, I took my cell phone, I took my keys, I took a flashlight, and I went down to the elevator to see if someone would be in there. Now, there would be no way of my knowing that except that if I banged on the door and somebody heard me, they might answer me back. Then at least I would know that somebody was stuck there, and I could call the police on my cell phone, hopefully, and let them know that I knew that at least one person was stuck on the elevator. So I banged on the elevator, but nobody said anything back. As it turns out, there was somebody that was in the elevator, but he was down several floors below me, and he probably could not have heard me, and I could not have heard him if he yelled. So at any rate, I'm banging on the elevator, no one's saying anything to me, and so I had no way of knowing if anybody was stuck or not. So I went back into my apartment, but I couldn't fall asleep. And the reason I couldn't fall asleep is that I was thinking to myself, I could have been on that elevator. I tend to be a night owl. I stay up late at night a lot, and I could have been the one that was stuck. And then there would have been no light, no communication, no way for me to communicate to anybody else, no way for anybody else to communicate with me, and I would be stuck as if it was like in a dark pit. Now, that would, I think, put me in some kind of a panic, but some people don't panic. I do have one piece of advice. If you're ever stuck in the elevator and you're a little on the claustrophobic side, try sitting on the floor. If you sit on the floor of the elevator, it seems you've got like a lot more space around you, and that gives you the feeling that you're not as crowded and stuck as what you may be, and as a result of that, it may help to ease some of the panic you may feel if you tend to be claustrophobic. Well, I wasn't in the elevator, so it didn't affect me, but I kept thinking of the fact that I could have been there. But we all face pits. You know, if you're in an elevator and it's stuck, it's like you're stuck in a pit. But there are a lot of other pits besides elevator pits, or pits where you're in a well or something like that. If you're in a dark elevator, it does feel like being in a pit. But our pits are like this. We have modern day pits. Financial problems, drug abuse, marriage problems, illness, loss, and grief. The good news is that God will get you out of your pit, whatever it is. He will take care of you, and He has not forgotten you. But the things that you go through make you feel like you're in a pit. Nonetheless, you are never alone because God is with you. Now, I'm going to read a verse here that comes from Psalm 40, verse 2. I'm reading it from the NIV version, and this is what it says. He lifted me out of the slimy pit, out of the mud and mire. I'm going to read it again. He lifted me out of the slimy pit, out of the mud and mire. But there's more to it than that, but what's left of it I haven't put on the screen. It would be a little long. So I'll read the whole thing again, including what I just read, and how the verse finally comes to its completion. He lifted me out of the slimy pit, out of the mud and mire. He set my feet on a rock and gave me a firm place to stand. Now that's important. It would have been too long for the screen, but that's important. He not only picks you up and gets you out of the pit, He stands you up again. He gives you a firm place to stand. He sets you on your feet. You know, in the Middle East, if you read a lot about sheep in the Middle East, sheep will get cast down. And what that means is that their center of gravity changes. If they're laying down and they lean over, the center of gravity can change. They can roll over on their back. So they're on their back with their forelegs sticking up. And they can't move. They can't change the position. They can't get back up again. They will die in that position because gases will be in the stomach. It'll cut off their breathing. And after a while, they will just die. But they will never be able, struggle as they might, to change their gravity and get back up on their own. So what happens? The sheep will depend upon the shepherd to come along. The shepherd would be there. The shepherd would lift up the sheep if he sees one cast down, and he puts them back on their feet. He rubs a little tummy so that the gases get rolling, and then they're all set. They're ready to go. But it took the shepherd, or somebody, usually the shepherd, to get them back on their feet again. There is a verse in the scripture that says, "Why art thou cast down, O my soul?" And it's making reference that we feel like we're cast down. It's talking about our souls being cast down. And the question is, why do you feel cast down, O my soul? And then it continues, that verse continues with, depend upon God. And that's what that culminates in. So we can expect as God's children that God is going to act on our behalf, and he will lift us out of that pit. Now the pit could be either a bad situation, a bad environment, a bad attitude, or even depression. As a matter of fact, one sign of clinical depression is that when you feel depressed, you don't get out of it. You feel like it's going to be forever. You feel like you can't get out of it and that there's no way of escaping it. And imagine, you can think back to that verse, "Why art thou cast down, O my soul?" Because that's what it would be reminiscent of. So one sign of this clinical depression is being depressed and thinking that it's never going to change, that you're always going to be that way. Now everybody has the blues occasionally, but if you stay in it, then you start to feel that it's permanent. And if you feel that it's permanent and there's no hope of ever getting out, you feel hopeless about it, then that's a good sign that you are in a clinical depression. But the thing about depression is, even though it's very hard to take, even though it's very hard to live with, it's very, very treatable. A lot of people get completely well from depression, or their symptoms go away with the help of therapy or medication or both. And so therefore, you don't have to fear that you won't get out of it, even though the sign of having it is the fact that you fear you won't get out of it. So God provides help for it. Depression is very treatable, and people can be healed from it. If you ever think about Mother Teresa, who was a very great person and helped a lot of people, she was clinically depressed, seriously depressed for most of her life. In all of the years of ministry that she had, dealing with people and helping them, there were only 2 weeks when she wasn't depressed. She had 2 good weeks where she felt wonderful, and then she sunk right back into the depression again. Only 2 weeks. And the rest of her life was very depressed. She kept working the way that she worked. She kept helping people the way that she helped people. But most of her life was depression. And I really think she could have been helped with that. I think she had a unipolar depression because she was able to get out of it for 2 weeks. So it was like a bipolar depression where you're very depressed or you're very elated. It swings back and forth. But if it settles on the depression side and doesn't remit, then it's a unipolar depression, and I think that's what she had. But I digress. Don't get discouraged, because depression can be healed. Now, my point is that God is not done with you. There is work to do. There is work for you to do, and there are people who need you, and God's deliverance comes just in time. I don't know if you've ever been in a bad situation and you think that you've been forgotten, that God doesn't care, that he's not there to help you, you don't know what's happening. Everything happens for a purpose. And because it happens for a purpose, and if you are a Christian, you know God is right there with you. You're not alone in whatever pit that you face. You're not alone. And he's going to step in and intervene just in time. And you notice that over and over again. If you live life as a Christian, you can see you go from one pit to another pit, from problem to another problem. It's like climbing the mountain from one step to another step to another step. And all the while, what kind of deliverance you need, it's always there at the right time, exactly at the right time, not too early and not too late. And after a while, you get to realize that God really is faithful, and he will help you, and he will take care of your needs just in time. And that builds faith within you. So he's going to set you, and another verse says this, I don't have it on the screen, but another Bible says that he sets you on firm ground and steadies you as you walk along. So if I'm to add that to what I've already read about the pit, he takes you out of the miry pit, he sets you on your feet, and he steadies you as you walk along. So there he is with you all the time. And I can't help but think about babies. You know, when they're learning to walk, they're always falling down. But they never give up. They get up and they try it again, and they fall down and they try it again. I love to see babies walk. They don't balance very well. And when they walk, they kind of walk stiff-legged. They haven't quite yet learned how to use their knees to help them to walk, but they get it after a while. But it's a series of falls and getting up, and falls and getting up, and parents lift them up all the time. You know, if your baby falls down, what do? You pick it up, you comfort it, you set it back on its feet, and it's there again. And so therefore, they learn that their parents will help them. We learn that God will help us. One of my favorite places in this world is Star Island. And it's in the middle of the Isle of Shoals, and that's 7 miles off the coast. The only way you can get there and back is by boat. But it's one of my favorite places, and it has on Star Island has on it a very huge white hotel, very large hotel. It encompasses a lot of the land of the island. And there's a whole series of steps getting up to the porch. It's set up off the ground quite a ways. And you have to go up a lot of steps, and then there's another set of steps. There are 2 or 3 sets of steps, and they really are quite long in nature. Now, I saw a father stand behind his child, a little boy or a little girl, who basically was only a few months old, and they were trying to get up each step. They're crawling up one step at a time. And they were enjoying it. They were laughing. They were having a good time. This baby was happy to be crawling up the steps, but it was a challenge. He wasn't old enough to walk, but his father stood right beside him, and he had his hands outstretched, cupped and outstretched. So if the baby fell back, he would catch him right in his hands. And all the time, he's watching his little one try to crawl up one step, looking back and grinning, trying to crawl up the next one. And all the time, the father's behind him with his arms out and just waiting for him to tip back, which he didn't do. He did all right. And the father, at the same time, was talking to him, encouraging him. You can do it. You can do it. You can really do it. And the baby got up for quite a ways. I didn't stay around to see if he made the whole set of steps. There was a lot of them. But he was very happy to do it, and his father was encouraging him. But it to me, I think it's a good illustration how God supports us as we work to serve him. Because it's like he's saying, keep on going, I'm right behind you. If you fall, I'm going to pick you up. Keep on going, I'm right behind you. If you fall, I'm going to pick you up. And if we fall back, he catches us. He catches us as the Father was willing to do. You know, sometimes what you have to do if you're unsure about things and if you don't feel comfortable with things is just keep going. Just keep doing. And in the end, if you are in a wrong direction, God the Father can correct that direction. If you are in the right direction, which most likely you will be if you're following God, because he will lead you, he's just going to gently be there with you and lead you all the way. You don't have to worry about, if I fall, what happens. If you're doing the best job that you can, he will support you. He will uplift you, and he's not going to let you fall to your detriment. There's a reason for everything, and if you fall, he can work that into his plan for you. So if we fall back, he catches us, just as the Father was ready to do with this baby, and we need to just keep going. There is a statement that says, don't worry about what you reach for and miss. You'd reach everything. You'd miss everything if you didn't reach at all. So I'm going to repeat that. Don't worry about what you reach for and miss. You would miss everything if you didn't reach at all. And so it's important that you keep going and that you keep striving and that you keep reaching. The truth is that God has started a work in you, and he's going to complete that work in you as long as you are faithful to him, as long as you wait on him for direction. He will complete that work that he has started. He will meet all of your needs in terms of his riches and glory, and he is never going to leave you, and he is never going to forsake you. If you understand the character of God, then you understand that he's love. He doesn't have love, he is love. He is love just like water is wet. If you would describe water, you would say water, oh, it has some wetness to it. No, water is wet. God is love. It's his character to be love, and he will never leave you and forsake you. So you know you're not going to be left, and you're not going to be injured, and you're not going to be missing out on what he has for you, because he's always going to be there for you. I'm going to read Romans 8:28 in the King James Version, and this is what it says. All things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose. Let me read that again. All things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose. Now, I like that version of it, because we are called according to his purpose. He knew you from before the foundation of the world. He knew what he was going to call you to do from before the foundation of the world. You learned it as you lived it and as you walked along in it, but he knew all along everything that was going to happen to you. He knew all along what he wanted you to do, and he knew how he was going to equip you to do that. So when things happen, they don't hurt you, they enhance what you're about. He can work it into his plan for you, because everything happens according to a purpose, and all of the things that happen to you work in accordance to his will to further the work that you are to do. So don't be afraid of that pit that you're in, because you are not alone in it. Now, I'm going to read one more verse and close with this, and this is going to be Hebrews 13, verse 8, and I'm reading it from the NIV version. And this is what it says. Jesus Christ is the same, yesterday, today, and forever. I'll read it again. Jesus Christ is the same, yesterday, today, and forever. He's been faithful to you in the past. He's going to be faithful to you in the present. He's going to be faithful to you in the future. If you belong to him, and I hope that you do, if you are a Christian, you belong to him. He is involved in your life in an intimate way, leading you, guiding you, taking care of you, giving wisdom to you. You can do what he wants you to do. You never have to fall back on that, because he will be there to help you all the way. Now, I'm going to close it here. We'll be doing something else next week. Please join me then.